welcome back to my channel. Alright, so the first thing that you need to do is you need to figure out what type of learner you are. There are so many ways to find out what type of learner you are. Honestly, nowadays, there's no excuse. You can take an online test. There, you can literally just type in what type of learner am I test on Google and something will come up and literally it can tell you what type of learner you are. But honestly, for me, the way that I figured out what type of learner I was literally just by going to school and seeing what works best for me. Personally, I'm a visual and auditory learner, so what that means is that I learn the best by seeing things in front of me, visualizing them, and auditory meaning by hearing them. In college, an app that really helped intertwine my need for visual and auditory learning is an app called Notability. This video is not sponsored. I was not paid for this video. I literally just love the app. I paid for it myself. I downloaded it myself and I used it. I genuinely love this app. And the reason I love this app is because I was able to just literally take the PowerPoint notes or whatever type of notes my professor would upload, put it into nice organized sections in Notability, and then I would be able to record my lectures while writing at the same time. And when I would go home later and review, I could literally tap on the note that I wrote at that exact moment and listen in real time with what the professor was saying when I wrote that note. It's a really great app and I plan on using it when I go to medical school. And for whatever future schooling I do after, I will definitely be utilizing Notability. So number 2 is to stay organized. I definitely emphasized this in my first video, but I really want to make clear that organization really is so important to studying and staying focused. When I was in undergrad, I had like a huge whiteboard inside my apartment and I literally organized it day by day, Monday through Saturday, what I was going to eat that day, what exams I had coming up, what goals I wanted to achieve short-term, long-term. I had everything on that whiteboard and it really saved my life because I could, as I said, I'm a visual learner and sometimes, I said this in the first video, you have to see it to believe it. There was so much I had to balance in undergrad. I was writing a thesis, starting a business, doing my YouTube channel, working on brand deals and collabs because at the time I was being more consistent with my social media. So there was so much I had to do, and as a pre-med, that's just inevitable that you're always going to be busy and have a lot to do. So it's really important that you stay organized. You don't have to have a huge whiteboard calendar like I did, but at least have a planner or something that you can plan out your days very effectively and always look at your long-term and short-term goals. I promise that will help you to look towards the future, motivate you more to study, and stay focused on the long-term goal. There's this ongoing joke about UF that it's the pre-med mill. It has that reputation for a reason. UF is the top 10 public university. It's number 6 right now. The tests and exams at UF for like the science classes were never just memorization. They were always very analytical. You had to be able to apply the stuff and analyze and you had to be able to integrate different concepts. I don't know for every single college if that's the same. So for me personally, when I studied, I always tried to attain the analysis level of Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy is this hierarchical model that's used to classify educational objectives into varying levels of complexity. It oftentimes required my understanding of the information and being able to integrate and draw connections among different ideas. So for example, on most exams, it was never just, hey, do you know what the glomerulus does? It really focused on testing your ability to analyze, so that ability to integrate complex topics. So how did I attain this analytical level of learning? I know that's the huge question. I always say to be an active learner. So active learning for me means really just being interactive in class, taking notes on what the professor is emphasizing, noting things that you realize the professor goes over multiple times, noting things that the questions the professor is asking. Sometimes those questions that they ask, they tend to show up on exams. So, and why I like Notability is because I can literally write that question, then I can kind of click on what that question was and hear what the professor uses, the explanation. So if I don't necessarily have enough time to write down the explanation that the professor was giving, I'm still able to hear it at that time or a later time when I'm studying, and that's also a form of active learning. It's really important to like really just be really interactive and in the moment when your professor is going on or lecturing. I'll have another video coming out at a later time where I go a little bit more in depth on how I took my notes when I was, active learning. So and I said in my video that I made 2 years ago that I tend to talk to myself a lot while I'm studying. Now, I didn't know that there was actually a term for the way I studied, but there is, and it's called active recall. So when I study, I ask myself a lot of questions, and I ask myself questions out loud. I talk to myself a lot. So what is active recall and why is it actually a really helpful way to help you achieve that analytical level that you need to do really well in these classes? While I would study and how active recall works is you basically ask yourself questions while you're studying along to make sure that everything is kind of making sense as you go. Like for example, let's say that we're learning about, since we're already talking about the glomerulus infiltration, let's say that we're learning about reabsorption in the kidneys and how your urine can tell if someone has diabetes. And I'm asking myself, well, what's reabsorbed and what's 100% reabsorbed by the kidneys and what's excreted and what shouldn't you see in urine? And I'm like, okay, well, why would this person have, you know, glucose in their urine? I'll ask myself that question and kind of make it sense. Oh, they have too much glucose in their blood. Transporters, much like enzymes, can get saturated because there's too much glucose in the blood. The kidneys has to get rid of the excess glucose, and that's why even though glucose should be 100% reabsorbed by the kidneys in a healthy human, that's where there's glucose seen in someone with diabetes mellitus. So like, I'll explain it to myself. I'll ask myself that question, kind of make it make sense. You know, I'll try to like make those connections, and that's what I would do. I would literally sit there and talk to myself, kind of like a teacher would ask me questions. I literally have always talked to myself when I study. I think I said this in my video I made 2 years ago that I talked to myself a lot. So I wanted to look a little bit more into active recall and why it's actually such an effective study mechanism and why people who use active recall tend to do really well in school. So I was looking into it, and there's this thing called the forgetting curve. And basically is that when you just get introduced to a new topic or a new face or just a new novel item in general, you tend to be very familiar with it. And if someone asks you about it within like a minute or 2 minutes after you learn about it, you can probably tell them almost a lot of details and stuff about it because it's novel, it's new, it was just introduced to you. However, according to the forgetting curve, within 9 hours after you're introduced to novel information, you can forget about 60% of that information within 9 hours. By actively retrieving or actively forcing your brain to take that material, you know, ask yourself questions, actively forcing your brain to retrieve that information over and over again, what that does is it actually like kind of trains your brain to like not forget that material in a way. I said this in my first video as well. It's important that you do spaced repetition. It's important that you are reviewing the material when you learn it. So even if you're not 100% understanding the material, at least when you learn it, try to take an hour or even 30 minutes to just review it. Try to ask yourself questions about it. What is this? What is that? Even if it's just memorizing at that point, just get it to make sense and get it to flow, especially for those classes that are very content rich and content heavy, like biochem, physio, microbio. MCAT books are actually really also good for helping with studying, especially for content heavy courses like biochem, biology. Even Gen Chem, it's pretty good as well. MCAT books, the Kaplan MCAT books are really good. And so I got it before I took physiology, which was one of the science classes I took during my last semester of undergrad. And my MCAT books helped me a lot with studying for physiology because I was studying for the MCAT while I was still in physio when like the whole coronavirus situation happened. And my biology book, especially the stuff that went over like the different systems and stuff, my biology MCAT book helped a lot with breaking down the material and that content review. So if you do have extra money kind of lying around and you want to purchase those MCAT books, not only will you be studying for your MCAT and doing content review for your MCAT, but it's also a great way to help you kind of study as well. So that's another one of my study tips as well that really kind of helped me, unbeknownst to me, but it turned out to really help as well.
Another study technique that really helped me to attain Bloom's taxonomy's analysis level was making concept maps, because they allowed for me to break those concepts down into parts and understand how each part of whatever topic we were learning was connected to each other. I'm showing a little example right here so you guys can kind of see what I would do. So for any math heavy science classes like physics, analytical chemistry, or Gen Chem, any of those classes, I found for me that the best way for me to study for those classes was to do a lot of practice questions. I also did practice questions for my content rich and content heavy classes as well, but I found that asking myself questions along the way was better for those content rich classes, whereas for the math heavy classes, practice questions and writing them out step by step neatly in an organized fashion was honestly the best way for me to study for those classes. And I'm including a couple screen recordings of what I would do when I would study for those classes.
So this was a question I also got a lot of my DMs, was about how to study when you're learning from textbooks. And fortunately for me, especially at UF, a lot of the professors had pretty good notes and pretty good lectures, so I really never got textbooks for most of my classes. However, I did use one technique that really helped me, and I actually learned this study technique when I was in 6th grade, and it is actually a form of active recall. The study technique that I used to study from textbooks is called the SQ3R techniques. SQ3R stands for survey, question, read, recite, and review. So the way that I kind of did this, especially in college, unlike in high school and in middle school, is I would leave the surveying part for going to lecture. So when I would go to lecture, I would kind of feel it out, and I would see kind of what my professor is like emphasizing in class, what topics they spend a lot of time on, what topics they really like put more notes and in-depth stuff on. And if they didn't like spend a lot of time on a topic, or like there's like something they just kind of just completely didn't touch on in class, I kind of didn't spend that much time on it. Now, I'm not saying I didn't look over it, I just didn't spend a lot of time like trying to make it like be like ingrained, and like I didn't spend as much time doing that. And something else that my professors always did is they always had like learning objectives. So they'd be like, oh, this is like what you need to attain, this is what you need to achieve by the end of this section. I would kind of keep that learning objective in mind when I would go through and survey the textbook, and I kind of knew what my learning objectives were based upon going to lecture. That's when I would go through and write my questions. And so how I'd write the questions is I would make sure that the questions were written in such a way that they helped me to achieve and understand the learning objectives of that class. I can definitely do a video kind of showing and explaining how this works a little bit more in depth. If you guys are interested, just let me know. So for the 3R part, the 3R part is kind of where your active recall kind of comes into place, because after you write your questions, which you're kind of writing to ask yourself, you're not answering the questions as you go, you're just writing the questions down. And you're writing these questions based upon the book, so you're kind of familiarizing yourself with the material in that way. So for the read section, this is kind of where you're going to go through and you're going to ask yourself these questions, but you're also answering the questions along with the textbook. And after you're done answering these questions, that's when I would take a little break. I wouldn't just, go. I would write the questions down, take a break, then read the book and answer the questions, take a break. And when I would review, I would basically have these questions that I wrote, try to answer them without the textbook, and see how much information I actually remembered. How much of this can I actually explain? Then I would go and see my answer, see what I got wrong, see what I got right, see what I left out, take a break, and then I would go back, go through it again, review it, see what I got wrong, see what I got right. And the reason why I really like this technique is because not only does it keep your notes organized, not only does it help you to attain the learning objectives of whatever it is your professor wants for you to understand for the test, but it really is a form that forces you to do active recall. So if you're not someone that's going to be comfortable sitting down asking yourself questions and writing down your notes in a nice organized fashion on your own, then this technique will force you to. And I do want to say that to anybody that writes like really pretty fancy notes, and this is no shade to any of my friends that did this, I promise you, writing pretty notes is not going to make you get 100 on the exam. Spend your time on writing your notes out in a manner that's concise, that will help you to retain the information and help you to stay organized. As I said in my first video, and this is actually something you probably might come across in psychology, that you'll remember information at the beginning and at the end, and you tend to forget a lot in the middle. And that's why it's important that you don't cram. It's really important that you do familiarize yourself with the material as often as possible. And while I am saying this and trying to tell you to be as hopeful and be as proactive and to try to be on top of things, I do know that life just got in the way. I was there so many times as a pre-med, you'd get depressed, you'd get anxious, and life would get in the way, and it's okay. I do want to tell you that that is okay. But try your best as much as you can to try to keep your life in order, to try to stay organized. Honestly, I'm incredibly type A, and I get anxious when things in my life aren't organized. When I'm not on top of things, it makes me more anxious. So for me, staying on top of things helps to keep me calm. It is okay that you don't do well on every single exam. Life will happen. You will have shortcomings. You will have failures. You will have things where you just don't get everything right the first time, and it's okay. And just remember that it's mindset over everything. If you put your mind to it, you think of things in a positive light, if you frame things in a positive way, yes, these classes are hard. Yes, they're meant to definitely be a little mentally debilitating at times, but I promise you that if I was able to do it, I was able to get, literally graduate magna cum laude with a Bachelor of Science in Biology, complete a thesis. And if I was able to do that, anyone can do it if you work hard. I promise you. You've got this. Believe in yourself. Don't give up. And if you ever need someone to talk to, my DMs are always open. I might not see your DM request immediately. It might take me a day or two to respond, but I promise you I'm always here for you. You can DM me anytime for advice, and I love you guys so much. So again, you guys, thank you so much for 10,000 subscribers. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed today's video. Follow me over on Instagram, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more videos from me. Bye guys.